Hello, we're back here at X-Rays, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. Our guest is certainly no stranger to most of you. Every time he joins us, he reminds us that real business success is more than just about better systems. It's about better people, better leadership, and making continuous improvement part of everyday work. And somehow, he always manages to make international standards feel much more practical than we expect. Joining us once again is none other than Ian Erskine, the Managing Director and CEO of ACI Global and e-Quip. Today, we'll tackle something that's becoming more important for organizations of every size. ISO 26000-2010, Corporate Social Responsibility or CSR, and how building a strong governance framework, an ethical organizational culture, and a genuine focus on people can help create long-term sustainability success. Hi, Ian.
And good morning, Miles, and good
Morning.
morning to all our lovely viewers. And I hope everyone is not too tired after watching their World Cup teams. And yes, commiserations, Miles, for Mexico not getting through. But as I said, I watched the Brazil and Norway match, and as we were saying before we came on, it was brilliant to actually watch the orchestration of the goals over, 5 minutes, sometimes longer, particularly from Norway. And yes, it's just a wonderful football to watch. Yeah, so let's see how things go.
Yeah, and that football topic could go a long way. Always a pleasure to have you back on X-Rays, Ian. Before we begin this session, I'd like to thank you again for the ISO personal certification ACI Global has given me. It really means a lot, and it's extra special because I received it on my birthday. So, Ian, when people hear ISO 26000 and corporate social responsibility, they might be assuming it's something only large corporations need to think about. But I think that's really not the case. Could you tell us who can benefit from it and how can organizations of different sizes use it to strengthen their governance framework, organizational culture, and long-term sustainability success?
Well, I certainly can. And again, congratulations to you. And just to explain to everyone, Miles has achieved this in demonstrating to ACI Global her ability to um, implement, plan, undertake, and then finalise every part of the task in podcasting, and she does it so well. And but yes, but to explain this very clearly, as we said before we came on air, personal certification represents a person's stepping stone throughout their career. Now, as they move through their career, and we verify and validate on an ongoing basis their tasks and their processes. Part of that is observing and watching them, how they actually conduct themselves throughout the process and things like that. And this is what we're going to actually talk about today when we talk about corporate social responsibility. It's the way you hold yourself, the way you actually deliver your message, right?
Mm-hmm.
For argument's sake, when you ask the question, the person who is receiving that message has to be able to understand fully. They have to be able to watch you as you're delivering it to realize that that question is genuine. You've thought it through and things like that, because it is, and I've been around for quite some time, where you can actually understand from the very get-go if someone is not genuine and they're talking to you. You can actually see that in their facial expressions and things like that. And this is actually what we're going to talk about today. This is the whole message of corporate social responsibility. It comes back down to the person. They
Mm-hmm.
have to be genuine. They have to be honest. They have to be outgoing, and they have to demonstrate that to people. And this is what we say. You demonstrate that through your facial expressions, the way you talk, the way you receive that message, the way you put your message out to other people. That's what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. And I like that you clearly set that perspective out because it reminds us that doing the right thing isn't actually reserved for global companies with huge budgets. Whether you're running a small business or a large organization, good principles usually scale surprisingly well. And that brings us to something almost everyone wrestle with, Ian. Once an organization understands who ISO 26000 is for, what makes it different from simply meeting legal requirements? How does it encourage businesses to build a culture of ethical behavior, strong principles, due diligence, and genuine responsibility?
A very simple answer to this, and that is it is not a certification standard.
Uh-huh.
It's a guidance standard only. Now, yes, ISO standards themselves are guidance standards. And this is where a lot of people don't realize. A lot of people call ISO standards, and yes, this is an ISO standard 26000, right? But ISO standards are not compliance standards. ISO standards, management system standards, yes, are certifiable. So that's where you call in a third party. But
Mhm.
it's specifically different with ISO 26000. It is not a certification standard. It has to remain guidance only. So let's step that back. So you look at ISO 26000 and you say, yes, okay, that's what we're going to incorporate within our business, right? And at all times, you are demonstrating that you want to actually conform to those guidelines. You don't need to have a third party, a single third party, overlook that, right? What happens with corporate social responsibility is that everyone within the organisation, everyone from outside, society in itself, regulators, lawmakers, they can all look in to observe how your organisation is actually going, right? That's
Yeah.
how this works. That's what corporate social responsibility is all about. It's all about people demonstrating that they want to continue to do the right thing.
Uh-huh.
And this goes back to the fundamentals of humanity. We as humans want to basically always do the right thing. That's
Mhm.
what we are naturally born to do. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's a bit like a smile. It's very easy to smile. It's very easy to be happy, but it's a damn sight harder to put on a frown and to be upset and be cranky and things like that, right? And
Mhm.
again, going back to social responsibility, always is a matter of continually striving to, as we say, accelerate continuous improvement. And that's why I think the 26,000 standard for ACI Global is such a good fit, because humans always want to strive to do better at all times. Hence,
Mhm.
the organisation needs to be able to demonstrate, well, we have to embrace everyone's journey on that accelerating continuous improvement mantra, right? And it goes back to when we're looking at the actual meaning of CSR, corporate social responsibility, and who it actually applies for. It applies to everyone, from the individual to the organisation and all the way up. And as we talk about corporations, yes, we are separate from the regulators, the policymakers, the politicians, and so forth. And I think in some respects that is deliberate, right? But in some respects that makes it a little bit difficult looking from our point of view to, for argument's sake, to regulators and higher up when you look at what's happening in the world today in reference to environmental sustainability. There clearly is a disconnect, right? Now, what I honestly believe is what's happening at the moment is, with the release of the ISO 14001 standard, the new environmental standard, where it does talk a lot about life cycle and talks about ecosystems and things like that. And I think the world is rapidly becoming to realise that there is this disconnect between the regulators, the powerful, the people, the lawmakers and politicians and so forth. and the corporate sector. And I always go back to what we said before. Generally, all corporations strive to do the right thing
Uh-huh.
because ultimately, if they don't do the right thing, they go out of business or certain people go to jail because they have been deliberately flouting the rule of law, primary duty of care, and chain of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the organisation's accountability comes because yes, there is ramifications if we do the wrong thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But going back to CSR and the ability to be able to take it on board, our for ACI, for us to be judged, we're just judged not only by the people to come through to do our courses, but
Mm-hmm.
also we're judged out in the broader field. People what looking at our website, see how we sit within the community, our support of charities and things like that. And again, when you look at ACI Global, we have a long lifetime learning product to support individuals all the time through their learning. We
Mm-hmm.
support a number of big charities and things like that. And that's where we demonstrate to the community as a whole, the society, how we fit in, because that's what society is all about.
Yeah. Mhm. And as you said before during our first podcast, Ian, we all have to strive to be better than the person we were yesterday. And the distinction you stated is very important because most people know they have to follow the rules or the law, but building trust takes something more. That's where values and everyday decisions really begin to shape the quality of an organization. And as you emphasized also earlier, unlike many other ISO standards, ISO 26000 is not designed for certification. Why was it developed that way, and how can they still use it to strengthen their management, improve quality, support TQM or the total quality management, and achieve sustained success even without earning a certificate?
Well, just going back to what I said, it was designed specifically for that. And I guess the principle there is that it is purely for an organisation to adopt for their own way in life, their own position within their own society, and things like that. And it's purely there on the principle you want to embrace CSR, you want to be there for the ongoing process of the development of your people, right? And you don't have to, you must not have to have that so that you have a third party overseeing to ensure that you're doing the right thing. Because in actual fact, you will do the right thing because your people will demand it within themselves. They're the ones that are guiding you and examining you at all times. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
where the principle comes. It's the
Mhm.
people within the organization that they are the ones that are looking and saying, well, no, guys, this is not the right way we should be going. Because if we
Mhm.
go that way, we're going to have, for argument's sake, uh, um, with life cycle, right? I really do feel, and I keep going back to this because, in fact, I think it's such a simple process to fix. We
Ah.
just have to simply say now, from now on, no more landfill for rubbish. Okay?
Mhm.
Zero landfill. Now, people say, yeah, but what happens, for argument's sake, some of the plastics and so forth like that? We already have technology where we can put that through a furnace, right? And the catalytic crackers on all the exhaustings that comes from that furnace are put in place so that they burn all the bad chemicals out so that whatever goes into the atmosphere does not harm the atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
We have the technology, but we as a society, and this is what I'm now calling for all organisations to actually put in within their own organisation's process. No, we're not going to put anything into landfill, right? You don't need to put rubbish into landfill. We have the technology, and I think it's just a matter, and I believe corporations through CSR, right, can actually lead that to demonstrate to the lawmakers and the regulators, well, hang on, maybe we should put some regulators in place to help the corporations that are demanding this. because that's the way it will get done.
Yeah. And I think that's actually refreshing. We should never forget that the real goal is improving how we actually operate and the skills and capability of everyone in the organization. So, Ian, if a company wants to get started and put ISO 26000 into practice, where should it focus first? How do the standards core objectives and subjects, I mean, from human rights and labor practices to environmental responsibility, fair operating practices, consumer issues, and community involvement help shape a stronger corporate social responsibility strategy and a healthier organizational culture?
Well, that's where the ISO 26000 comes into being, well and truly. It's quite an extensive document, but it's there for a purpose. Organisations can look at it and put in whatever they require. And again, this will come through from the people themselves, right?
Mhm.
It will be people driven. Now, what we're doing in this space, ACI is doing in this place, and it follows on from what you and I have just been involved in the 11-part series of a quality organisation, right? We're actually now going to take that series and we're going to actually add in as an add-on, no charge, and we will actually assign people within each of the organisations to them. Yes, they will need to pay a retainer for that person over a given period. But what we will do is we will train people in understanding what a true quality organisation is all about. So they
Mhm.
first of all, they put that in place, right? And now as they go through to put that in place, they will also be putting in place the guidelines from CSR, corporate social responsibility. So by the
Yeah.
time they finish, they will have a quality organisation framework in place, plus the CSR, right? And then the option for them then will be, if they then so do wish, they can then become part of the Global Reporting Initiative, the GRI. We're a
Mhm.
founding member. And
Yes.
again, we will assist them in that process, but that is completely separate from what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I like how those topics connect almost every part of a business. But as you said, it's people driven. They're not separate checklists, right? They're linked to how organizations treat their people, their customers, partners, communities, and even the environment. Together, they create this much stronger foundation, which leads nicely to our final question, Ian. When organizations bring all these ideas together, how can organizations bring all these principles together to create a culture that keeps improving well into the future?
Well, that's interesting because it goes back to the very founding principle of all this, and that is quality. Do it once, do it right. And there is absolutely no grey areas between right and wrong.
Yes.
And I just want to digress a little bit because it is very, very important in society to do today. I think we've started to complicate things by looking at certain people and saying, oh, they're extreme right, looking at other people, they're extreme left. And we've got this notion that people are on the right or people are on the left. What I want to go back to the very principle of you're either right or you're wrong. Okay, there's no grey areas. Now, if we have that principle in place, all this makes sense, right? This is where true CSR, a true quality organisation, comes to the fore, right? So you sit down as a team. Now, yes, corporates have goals that they set in place because corporations run on money, right?
Mhm.
They have to make money so that they can pay their people can go home and feed their families and so forth. Yes, right? But to achieve that, they must have this mantra of do it once, do it right, no grey areas between right and wrong. Now, just to look at this as a process for argument's sake. Push, push, push. The organisation's pushing to achieve its targets. Eventually, you'll get the organisation will get to the point where the people will come back to them and say, hang on, we're being pushed too fast, too far. We can't produce the quality product because we're being forced to cut corners. Go back to what we said. No grey areas between right and wrong. So you have to look at why you've got yourself into that position. And it has nothing to do with being forced to break that principle between right and wrong. And overseeing that grey area is the rule of law, primary duty of care, and chain of responsibility. So all
Mhm.
these come in neatly entrailed within the process of achieving CSR. And that's how that happens.
Yes. And one thing I've taken away from this is that CSR is part of how an organization chooses to operate every day. Your message is pretty clear. The foundation is quality. Meaningful success comes from consistently making better decisions. Do it once, as you said, do it right. Thank you once again, Ian, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. It's a pleasure as always.
No, thank you. And what we're actually going to be doing in the next number of podcasts, we're actually going to break the ISO 26000 down into each of its main requirements,
Mhm.
right? And the first one that we will be looking at will be the structure, terminology, because the terminology in itself is very important. And even if we look at, and this is something that's unfolding in Australia at this very time, and I would have thought, my goodness me, it wouldn't happen in Australia. But when we talk about modern slavery, right? Every Australian business has to have a modern slavery policy in place. Now, what's happened here over the last couple of weeks is one of our major corporations has been found to be guilty of slavery. Now we're going now through that process. Now, what I would like all organisations in Australia is to have a look at this, what has actually happened, right? And we have to look at this and say, hold on, there's certain things we now need to change within Australia so this does not ever happen again.
Mhm.
Okay. And again, this is where CSR comes out because the people within the corporation will actually drive that process. Now, I'm totally convinced that people will have a look at that and what
Mhm.
has happened and say, no, we have to look at why this happened. So you go back to the root cause, you go back, as you and I have been talking about. Don't worry about the paperwork. Go back and have a look at what that initial issue was.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, to me, once they have a look at it, go back and have a look at the facts, the issues are quite clear of what the major issue was. Right?
Yes.
And I'm not going to tell people what it was. Right? They will see it quite clear to themselves. And we just need to have a look at this and say, well, okay, maybe a few things might have to change within Australia.
Mhm.
Right? But this must never, ever happen again.
Yeah. And I'm sure that would be a great way to start to breaking down the ISO 26000, the structure and terminology.
Yes, no,
Let's
we
go
will.
to,
And like I said, we will. And the second part of that series is all to do with issues and how
okay.
to address issues. And I think once we do the first couple, then we'll get into the foundations of CSR 26,000, right? But yes, I'm looking forward to it, very excited about it. And I guess as you can see, when I brought up that business with slavery, right? I become very passionate, and some respects I've read through how this has actually unfolded, and I
Mhm.
have become emotional because it is so sad to think that people could stoop to such levels that they degrade people within the world today. And it's shocking. And I think we just want to bring people with us on this journey because it is such an exciting journey to see, right? And I can see the look in your face, right? But the journey is to bring that smile back to people because
Yeah.
that smile demonstrates that that person is genuinely happy,
Uh-huh.
generally relaxed, and generally in having the ability to look after not only themselves but look after their families and their future siblings.
Yeah. Looking forward to learning more from you, Ian. Thank you. I'm excited. Thanks again. I hope you folks appreciate how Ian simplified and started ISO 26000. This is definitely not a complicated idea. This is a practical way organizations can build stronger businesses and create lasting value. Go to their website to find a wealth of educational resources, professional development opportunities, some practical guidance to help you continue improving. And if you'd like to check more of his podcast episodes as well, just go to the link below. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in our next one. This has been your host, Miles, with Ian. Stay focused, driven, and inspired with X Raced.